Dr. Pat White, and I'm a veterinary dermatologist. Today we're going to talk about flea control. It is so important for you to understand all aspects that are necessary for flea control. I think one of the most common questions I get from owners is, or the most common complaint is, my flea product isn't working and I'm using a good, strong monthly flea control product on my pet. What's going on? And I can tell you what's going on. The problem is that a whole flea treatment program hasn't been employed. And when we're talking about flea treatment and an entire program being employed, we're talking about treating your pet, treating your home, and treating the yard. In addition to that, any other pets that come in contact with your pet should be treated as well. So if you have indoor-outdoor cats, they should have treatment on them. If your neighbor's dog comes over to play, that's a potential source for fleas. So we're talking about an entire program to make sure that your flea treatment works. If you're only using a monthly flea treatment on your pet, you're probably going to have fleas, especially in the Southeast. We have fleas year-round. There's no such thing as a winter in Atlanta, Georgia. And if you live in the Southeast, if you live in Florida, if you live anywhere where the temperature is warm and the humidity is up for most of the year, then your flea season is year-round. It takes a good hard frost to kill any fleas outside. And that's assuming that you've taken care of your home and you've taken care of your pet during the year. So what we're going to do today is make sure that you have been well informed and taught how to employ really good, complete flea control for your home, for your yard, and on your pet. Okay, so now let's talk about the flea life cycle, because this is going to be your ammunition. This is going to be the way that you get complete control of fleas in the environment. By understanding this cycle completely, if you find that your pet has fleas and you've been using a monthly flea product, then hopefully you will be able to look back and see where in your flea control program there may be a slight break and correct it. But understanding the flea life cycle is key to that process. So a flea jumps on your pet. The very first thing that has to happen is that the flea will feed, have a blood meal, breed, and then lay eggs. And a single female flea is able to lay up to 200 eggs in her lifetime. And her lifetime is anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks. Multiply that by a half a dozen fleas and you can see how rapidly that flea population in the environment can get out of control. So the flea has had an opportunity to meet her mate, to breed, and to lay eggs. Now what happens? Well, these eggs are very small and round and non-sticky, so they just roll off your pet. They roll off any place your pet spends time. That might be in the yard, it may be in the basement, it may be in the pet's bed, it may be on your sofa or in your bed, or on the rug in front of the door as they wait for you to come home. These are the places that get very quickly populated by flea eggs. The flea eggs incubate and they take a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending on the heat and humidity, to hatch. And when these eggs hatch, a very clear to white looking larva or worm-like individual emerges. These larvae then incubate and grow in the environment. Well, what do they feed on? They feed on any garbage, dirt, debris, dead skin cells, dried feces from digested blood from the adult flea. All of that is food for these little baby larvae. And as they grow, they then begin to spin a cocoon and they go into a place of incubation. And this phase is called the pupal phase. The pupal phase, or the pupa of the flea, is the most impervious to any kind of flea control. In fact, this is the flea's survival stage. Once they've spun this cocoon, they can stay in these cocoons for a year or more. So that can be the source of reinfestation in an environment that has been cleaned or cleared of any living warm-blooded animal. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a house in the mountains that you go to twice a year, and you take your dogs, and you've got your flea control on your dogs, but maybe it's time for it to be applied. You take your pets, they get a few fleas, they leave some fleas behind, you close up the house is quiet. No warm-blooded animals, not people, not animals, nothing. Those pupae just sit there and incubate and wait for an opportunity for a warm-blooded animal to show up again. Let's say you rent your house to your brother-in-law and your sister. They don't have any pets, but they come to your cabin and they open the door and suddenly they're attacked by fleas. What has happened is, as they've walked in, these pupae have been able to detect carbon dioxide that's expelled. When we exhale CO2. They detect a change in temperature, your warm body coming into the room, and they realize that food has arrived. And they hatch out of the pupa and they're ready to feed and start that cycle all over again. And although fleas like our pets better than they like us, they like blood more, and they will feed on any warm-blooded animal that comes into the room. So in this case, it's your brother-in-law and your sister. So again, it's really, really important to understand the life cycle of the flea, from the time that the adult flea bites your pet, to the time that it lays eggs, to the time that the eggs incubate in the environment and then hatch. The larva phase goes on to the pupal phase. The pupal phase is the phase that stays around the longest, that seems to be most impervious to flea control, and then the pupa hatch out. There are actually 3 young stages of the flea until it becomes the adult flea, but that's it. Eggs, larva, pupa, adult. Those are the 4 stages of the life cycle, and in order for us to get really good flea control in place, we have to understand all 4 and how to interfere with each of those sections or parts of the life cycle. In the next segment, we'll talk about flea products in particular, but I want to make this point right now, that when you use flea products on your pet, you are targeting most of the time just the adult flea. With some flea products, they target both the adult flea, and there's a product in there that sterilizes the flea so that they produce eggs that won't hatch. That's the best that flea control on your pet is going to get. And if you happen to get a flea that gets past that and is able to reproduce, then now you understand treating the home, treating the yard is imperative, is an absolute must in order to get all of the fleas out of the environment. Thanks for your attention. When you see me again, we're going to be talking about flea control on your pet and in the environment.